The planet Lithera was unlike any other in its sector of the galaxy. Its skies shimmered with green and gold, and oceans glowed faintly under the twin suns. The Litherans, who had lived there for thousands of cycles, were a delicate people. Their bodies were slender, almost fragile, and their voices soft and melodic. But what they lacked in physical strength, they made up for in intelligence. Their cities floated above the oceans, held aloft by advanced technology that humans would have called magical. They studied the stars, created art that resonated across dimensions, and lived in harmony with their world. But harmony was ending. From the edge of their system, a shadow moved. The Vorak, a race of conquerors, had detected Lithera and its treasures. Unlike the Litherans, the Vorak were brutal and powerful. Their ships were war machines, capable of consuming a planet if left unchecked. When the first Vorak scouts appeared near Lithera's orbit, panic swept through the Litheran Council. They had no army capable of stopping such a force. The delicate defenders of Lithera were scholars, artists, and scientists, not warriors. In the council chamber, tension hung thick. Hiram, the youngest member of the council, paced nervously. "We must call for help," he said. "We cannot fight them alone. Our knowledge will not save us from the Vorak." The Vorak do not wait for negotiations or pleas. Far away on a small blue planet called Earth, the message was received. On Earth, humans were nothing like the Litherans. They were messy, loud, and often reckless. They were not graceful or delicate. They fought wars, explored dangerous worlds, and survived where others could not. And when the Litheran plea appeared on Earth's sensors, it reached ears that listened differently than most. In a secure, hidden facility, human leaders gathered around a large screen studying the message. On the screen, Lithera shimmered with its golden oceans and floating cities. The message was polite, careful, and desperate. "We beg for assistance," it said, "for our survival." But one voice interrupted the debate. "No," said Commander Jerk, a man whose face was lined with scars and whose eyes had seen every kind of battlefield. "They do not need polite soldiers. They do not need diplomats. They need monsters. Humans who can fight without fear, adapt without rules, and survive against the impossible." "Monsters? You mean dangerous humans. Why would we send them?" "Earth sends monsters." When the transport ship launched from Earth, the Litherans watched from their observatories, unaware of the kind of beings approaching. They expected shining armor, perfect soldiers, and disciplined formations. What arrived was different. The ship's engines flared into the sky, and as it descended, humans began to emerge. They were rough in appearance, with tattoos, scars, and expressions that hinted at past horrors endured. Some carried tools that looked like weapons, others had machines strapped to their backs. They did not walk in order. They spread across the landing field in a way that was chaotic to any observer. The Litherans whispered among themselves. "Are these the saviors?" one asked, disbelief in their voice. "They are not what we expected," another replied, eyes wide. Yet the humans did not wait for approval. They began scanning the terrain, noting vantage points, potential cover, and routes the Vorak could take. Their movements were precise, efficient, and unnerving. Some humans crouched behind natural formations, others examined Litheran technology with curious eyes, already figuring out how to adapt it for battle. The Litherans realized slowly that these were not polite saviors. These were something else entirely. Hiram approached one of the humans, a woman with dark skin and piercing eyes who was adjusting a strange device. You will help us?" he asked, voice trembling. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "We will survive," she said simply. "That is what we do." They walked through cities of floating platforms, where Litherans had delicately placed gardens and libraries. They touched the shimmering walls, adjusted devices, and asked questions that made Litherans uncomfortable. "Why are you touching that?" a Litheran asked, alarmed at a human fiddling with their intricate energy conduits. "Because it can be useful," the human replied simply, eyes scanning the room for structural weaknesses or tactical advantages. The Litherans could not deny that humans had a strange genius. Where the Litherans thought in elegance, humans thought in survival. Where the Litherans thought of beauty, humans thought of effectiveness. It was frightening, but also fascinating. Then the Vorak arrived. First came small ships scouting the planet. The Litherans panicked, sending alarms and calling for evacuation protocols. But the humans were already in motion. They had set traps, marked vantage points, and prepared for the first engagement. When the Vorak landed their scouts, they found themselves ambushed in ways they did not expect. Explosions rocked the floating cities, but instead of destruction, they were controlled, designed to disable the Vorak without harming the Litherans. The Litherans watched in amazement as humans leaped from platform to platform, dodged attacks, and used the environment in ways no Litheran could have imagined. Every move was precise, brutal, and terrifying in its elegance. The Vorak retreated, confused and shaken. For the first time, Litherans felt hope. Hiram stood beside one of the human leaders as they watched the Vorak leave. "You are monsters," he said quietly. The human smirked, a mix of pride and warning. "Yes, and sometimes monsters are what the universe needs." They were no longer outsiders or strangers. They were protectors in the rawest sense. They did not follow the Litheran rules of beauty or ceremony. They fought, survived, and adapted. They were unpredictable, yes, but they were effective. As the twin suns set over the oceans of Lithera, Hiram looked at the humans. They were setting up defenses, studying enemy patterns, and preparing for the battles to come. Litherans would have preferred polite saviors, disciplined soldiers, or wise diplomats. But what they had received were monsters, and for the first time, they believed that maybe monsters were exactly what they needed. And somewhere deep in the human ranks, Commander Jerk smiled. The first steps of a war had been taken, and the monsters from Earth had already begun to leave their mark. The galaxy would soon learn that when humans arrived, nothing remained predictable. The delicate, fragile Litherans had called for saviors, but Earth had sent something far stranger and far more powerful, something unstoppable. The night fell on Lithera, but the humans did not sleep. They mapped, trained, and prepared. They whispered plans to each other in languages the Litherans could barely understand. They studied the Vorak patterns, calculated every move, and waited for the real war to begin. And though the Litherans trembled, they also hoped. For the first time, they felt the stirrings of courage, taught not by their own kind, but by Earth's monsters. The stars above Lithera shone brightly, and across the void, the signal that had called for help had finally found its answer. And that answer was not gentle, it was fierce. It was raw, it was human. The humans did not waste time. As the first Vorak ships retreated, the team began moving through Lithera's landscapes with precision. They were rough and wild, but every step had purpose. Some humans climbed cliffs to watch for enemy movements. Others explored the floating cities, learning their structures and finding ways to use them for defense. Litherans watched nervously, unsure how such dangerous creatures could be trusted to protect their fragile world. Commander Jerk led a small group toward a nearby forest, a dense area of glowing trees and tangled vines. He crouched behind a tree and pointed toward a Vorak landing zone. "They'll move through here first," he said. His voice was low, commanding attention. "We can use this terrain, make it work for us. Use traps, noise, and light. Confuse them, we'll hit them hard and fast." "You mean let them think they're walking into an easy fight, then tear them apart?" They moved silently, left no tracks, and used the environment like a weapon. Over the next few days, the humans trained the Litherans. At first, it was frustrating. The Litherans were gentle and careful, struggling to match human speed and aggression. They hesitated before making decisions, afraid of causing harm. The humans had no patience for hesitation. "Move," Mara barked at a group of Litherans practicing with makeshift weapons. "Think fast, act faster. Fear will kill you faster than the enemy." Litherans discovered that even small changes in their floating cities could create deadly traps. One night, a small Vorak patrol came close to a Litheran village. The humans were ready. They had set alarms and traps, using vines, rocks, and energy fields. When the Vorak entered, lights flashed and hidden mechanisms activated. The humans attacked from the shadows, moving so fast the Vorak could barely react. The Litherans watched wide-eyed as the humans fought. They were terrifying, unstoppable, and brilliant. One human flipped through the air, kicking a Vorak off a platform, while another hurled a device that released a smoke cloud and flashing lights. The Vorak stumbled, panicked, and fled. After the battle, Litherans whispered among themselves. "They are monsters," one said, but there was awe in their voice. "Yes, but they save us," another replied. Commander Jerk walked through the village with Myra and a few others. Litherans peeked from behind walls, still nervous but slowly trusting. "This is how we survive," Jerk said. "Not by waiting for them to come to us, but by going to them first. Control the fight, or it controls you. The universe doesn't wait for polite people." Using their knowledge of human strategy, they began small raids. The attacks were precise, deadly, and unconventional. Vorak scouts vanished without a trace. Supply ships exploded mysteriously. The Vorak could not predict human methods, and fear began to spread among them. Litherans joined these raids, guided by humans. At first, they were clumsy, moving too slowly or hesitating. but humans taught them, showing patience where needed and harshness where necessary. Slowly, Litherans discovered courage within themselves. They learned that survival was not about perfection. It was about ingenuity, quick thinking, and determination. One day, a human scout named Rylan returned to the village with news. "Vorak are planning a major assault," he said. "Ships are coming tomorrow. Large numbers. They want to overwhelm the cities and force surrender." And we survive. When the first Vorak troops landed, chaos erupted, but it was controlled chaos. Humans moved through the streets and platforms like shadows, striking quickly and disappearing. Litherans followed, using new tactics learned from humans. They dropped nets, triggered alarms, and pushed enemies into traps. Every move was calculated but appeared spontaneous to the Vorak. The battle lasted for hours. Vorak technology, superior in strength, could not withstand the unpredictable human methods. Explosions rocked the floating cities, but the humans ensured minimal Litheran casualties. One Vorak commander attempted to regroup, but humans had already cut off escape routes, forcing the troops into ambushes. By nightfall, the first wave of Vorak was repelled. Humans and Litherans stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. The Litherans could hardly believe it. Their cities were safe, their people alive, and their enemies scattered. Hiram approached Jerk, awe and gratitude in his eyes. I do not understand. How did you do it? How did you turn our fragile world into a battlefield you could control?" "We see what you see, but we don't fear it. We use it. Adapt, fight, survive. That's what humans do, that's what monsters do, and that's what saves worlds." Humans embodied these qualities, raw and frightening as they were. That night, the floating cities glowed softly under the twin suns' fading light. Humans walked the streets, checking traps, monitoring Vorak movements, and planning the next steps. Litherans followed, curious and respectful, learning more with every passing hour. In the distance, the Vorak regrouped, sending messages back to their fleet. Rumors spread among their ranks. The humans from Earth were not ordinary. They were unpredictable, ruthless, and terrifyingly intelligent. The Litherans whispered the same thing to each other, but with different meaning. These humans were monsters, but the monsters were their saviors. As the twin moons rose over Lithera, the humans prepared for the battles ahead. Each trap, each maneuver, each strike was designed not just to win, but to teach the Litherans the strength within themselves. They were rough, dangerous, and sometimes frightening, but the humans had shown one undeniable truth. When monsters arrive, even the impossible can be survived. By the end of that cycle, Lithera was no longer a world of fragile people awaiting rescue. It was a world learning courage, strategy, and adaptation from Earth's humans. The first battle had been won, but the war was only beginning. Yet for the Litherans, hope had been reborn. For the humans, it was just the beginning of a war that would prove that monsters could be heroes, and that when Earth sent its children, the universe would have to reckon with them. The humans moved through Lithera like shadows, silent, deadly, and precise. Their presence had transformed the planet. Where the Litherans had once seen vulnerability, they now saw opportunity. Every forest, every cliff, every floating city platform had become part of the battlefield. The Vorak, once confident in their power, now faced uncertainty. The humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was their deadliest weapon. Commander Jerk stood on a high cliff, overlooking a valley where Vorak's supply lines ran. Beside him, Mara, Rylan, and several others adjusted their equipment. Litherans were nearby, hiding behind rocks and trees, watching and learning. "They'll come through here at dawn," Jerk said, pointing to a narrow canyon below. "We'll hit them hard, no hesitation, no mercy." "How can you be so certain?" Their ships glided above the valley, and their ground troops moved in formation below. They were confident, their weapons ready, their eyes on victory. They did not see the humans hiding on the cliffs, camouflaged perfectly, waiting for the right moment. The attack began. Mara and a team of humans leaped from their positions, rolling down the cliff with practiced skill. Rylan triggered a device that sent a wave of smoke across the valley, blinding the Vorak. Commander Jerk moved swiftly, tossing energy grenades that exploded in bursts of light and sound. The Vorak faltered, confused by the sudden chaos. Litherans followed the humans' lead. At first, their movements were hesitant, but seeing the humans strike without fear, they gained courage. They pulled levers to drop net traps, triggered hidden platforms that launched rocks and debris, and used energy pulses to disable Vorak machinery. Each move, guided by human strategy, turned the valley into a deadly maze. The Vorak commander, a massive figure clad in dark armor, roared in frustration. His troops were faltering, disoriented by the unexpected tactics. They tried to regroup, but humans anticipated every move. Myra dashed between Vorak's soldiers, her agility unmatched, striking quickly and disappearing into the smoke. Rylan flanked from the side, disabling weapons and sowing confusion. Hiram watched, heart-pounding. He had never seen combat like this. The humans did not fight with rules or honor. They fought with instinct, intelligence, and raw courage. Every attack was calculated, yet it looked wild and chaotic. He realized that this chaos was not random. It was strategy in motion, the kind of strategy Litherans had never imagined. By mid-morning, the Vorak were retreating. The humans had disrupted their formation, destroyed supplies, and left them disoriented. But the humans did not celebrate. They regrouped, checked their surroundings, and began planning the next strike. Every moment was preparation for the war to come. As the valley quieted, Litherans approached the humans. We cannot believe what we saw," one said. "Your methods, they are terrifying but effective. You learn to fight, adapt, and survive, or you die. These tactics save lives, you saw it today." Slowly, the Litherans gained confidence. One Litheran, small and timid, asked Myra, "How do you remain calm in such danger? You do not panic." The humans and Litherans launched small strikes against Vorak's supply routes, sabotaging resources and disrupting communications. Each raid strengthened the Litherans' skills and confidence. The humans adapted to the planet's unique environment, using its natural features to their advantage. Rivers became barriers, cliffs became vantage points, and forests became traps. Rylan discovered a narrow canyon filled with energy crystals that could amplify attacks. "We can use this," he said to Jerk. "If we position correctly, we can take out multiple Vorak units at once." "The humans, they are not like any enemy we have faced," one said, fear evident in its voice. "They are unpredictable. They fight in ways that defy logic. Our strength is useless against them." They had faced stronger enemies before and had survived. They understood that technology alone did not win wars. Creativity, courage, and adaptation were equally important. The Vorak had strength, but humans had unpredictability and ingenuity. One night, Jerk gathered his team. "Tomorrow we strike at their main supply camp," he said. "It is heavily guarded, but if we coordinate, we can destroy it. The Litherans will assist. They now know enough to be useful, and they are brave. We will hit them fast, hit them hard, and disappear before they can retaliate." Litherans studied the terrain, memorized paths, and learned how to trigger traps. Together, they formed a plan that combined human strategy with Litheran knowledge of their planet. At dawn, the team moved out. The valley was quiet, but tension filled the air. Vorak sentries patrolled, unaware of the ambush awaiting them. As the humans approached, Mara whispered, "Remember speed and surprise. Confuse them, make them panic. We don't need a fair fight, we need victory." The Litherans, once timid, now fought alongside the humans. They pushed enemies into nets, triggered alarms, and used energy pulses to disable Vorak technology. Each success boosted their confidence. They realized that they were not helpless. They were learning to survive, to fight, to adapt. By noon, the Vorak supply camp was in ruins. Humans had achieved their objective with minimal casualties among the Litherans. The Vorak were scattered, disoriented, and fearful. Rumors spread among their ranks. The humans were not ordinary. They were monsters, unpredictable, dangerous, and deadly. Hiram watched the aftermath, awe in his eyes. "We called for saviors," he said quietly. "But these monsters, they are teaching us to be strong." Litherans observed, gradually understanding the importance of preparation, adaptability, and strategy. They were learning that survival depended not only on skill, but on thinking differently, acting decisively, and never underestimating the enemy. As night fell, the humans stood on a cliff, looking at the camp below. Fires burned and smoke rose into the sky. Vorak forces were regrouping, but now fear had entered their ranks. They had seen what humans could do, and uncertainty spread among them. Commander Jerk spoke softly to Mara. "This is only the beginning. The Vorak think strength will win, but unpredictability and courage are stronger. We've shown them that humans and Litherans who learn to fight cannot be defeated so easily. And the Litherans, they are starting to see it too. They're changing. They could fight. Humans had shown them what courage meant, and in doing so they had given Lithera hope. The stars above Lithera twinkled, and in the dark shadows of the forests and cliffs, humans and Litherans alike prepared for the next phase of their fight. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. The Vorak had underestimated the monsters from Earth, and Lithera would never be the same again. The humans were rough, unpolished, and terrifying, But they were also brilliant, courageous, and unstoppable. And for the Litherans, that was all that mattered. The war for Lithera had entered a new stage, one where courage, ingenuity, and adaptability would decide the fate of a world, and humans were at the center of it all. The Vorak were not defeated. Their scouts had returned with reports of humans and Litherans working together, and fear had begun to spread through their ranks. The commanders were furious. They had faced countless species, each conquered with brute force, but the humans were different. They were unpredictable, ruthless, and intelligent, and now they were teaching the Litherans to fight. Commander Zark of the Vorak fleet slammed his massive fist against a console. "They are monsters," he roared. "They are not like the others. We must destroy them all, leave no survivors." They had trained the Litherans to act without hesitation, to think strategically, and to use the terrain to their advantage. The first sign of the new Vorak offensive came in the early hours of the day. Ships descended from the sky, larger and more numerous than before. Vorak soldiers moved into the forests and plains, ready to crush the humans and Litherans in a single, decisive strike. But the humans had anticipated this. Jerk and his team moved through the forest with silent precision. Mara led a squad to the high cliffs overlooking the valley where the Vorak were assembling. Rylan and a few others planted explosive devices at strategic points, hidden beneath rocks and vines. Litherans moved alongside them, now confident in their abilities, carrying weapons and activating traps with steady hands. "This is it," Jerk said quietly. "They think they will overwhelm us, but they will learn that Lithera fights differently now." They unleashed weapons, firing energy pulses that lit up the forest with deadly precision. Humans ducked, rolled, and returned fire, using every skill they had to disrupt the Vorak advance. Mara leaped from a cliff, striking a Vorak patrol before disappearing into the shadows. Rylan triggered a hidden explosion that blocked the enemy's retreat and forced them into another trap. The Litherans were no longer timid. They moved with purpose, dropping nets, activating energy barriers, and directing Vorak soldiers into ambushes. Each success gave them confidence, and they began to understand the humans' methods. Courage was no longer foreign, it was something they could learn. In the heart of the forest, Jerk spotted a massive Vorak war machine moving toward the Litheran cities. Its armor glowed with energy, and its weapons could destroy buildings in seconds. The humans knew that stopping it would be difficult. "This is our target," Jerk said. "We take it down or the cities fall. Mara, Rylan, with me. Everyone else, hold the line and protect the Litherans." Mara leaped onto the machine, planting an explosive device at a weak point she had identified. Sparks flew as the Vorak soldiers noticed her presence, firing desperately. She dodged, rolled, and detonated the charge, sending the machine reeling. Rylan disabled the weapon's systems while Jerk coordinated the strike from a safe distance. The machine fell, crashing into the forest with a deafening explosion. Trees shattered, rocks flew, and smoke filled the air. The Vorak forces hesitated, stunned by the sudden loss of their weapon. Humans and Litherans seized the moment, striking from multiple angles, forcing the enemy into retreat. For hours, the battle raged. Humans and Litherans moved as one, blending strategy with courage. Each trap, each strike, and each maneuver demonstrated the raw power of collaboration between Earth's monsters and Lithera's people. The Vorak, despite their superior strength, could not predict the humans' next move. As night fell, the humans regrouped. Litherans approached them cautiously, still learning but full of respect. You are not just monsters," one said softly. "You are our teachers, our protectors, our hope. You know how to fight." In the distance, Vorak commanders observed the battlefield, frustration evident in their movements. They could not understand how a race they had considered weak could adapt so quickly. Every defeat was a blow not only to their strategy but to their pride. Back in the human camp, Jerk gathered his team. "The Vorak will not stop," he said. "They will bring everything they have. But we have taught the Litherans well. They are no longer helpless. Together we can face anything. Monsters who adapt, survive, and never back down." The Litherans began to understand the value of human methods. They saw that careful planning, adaptability, and courage could turn the tide of battle. They learned that even the strongest enemies could be defeated with intelligence and bravery. At dawn, the Vorak returned, this time with larger forces and more powerful machines. The humans were ready. Every trap, every ambush, and every strategy had been prepared. The Litherans joined in, no longer afraid, their skills sharpened under human guidance. The battle that followed was fierce. Vorak machines fired relentlessly, soldiers charged, and the ground shook. But humans moved with precision, dodging attacks, coordinating strikes, and using the environment to their advantage. Litherans activated traps, directed enemy forces into ambushes, and fought alongside humans with growing confidence. Mara leaped from one platform to another, striking Vorak's soldiers with deadly efficiency. Rylan disabled machines before they could fire, while Jerk coordinated attacks, predicting enemy movements. Each move demonstrated human adaptability, turning chaos into strategy. The Vorak commander watched in disbelief. Their superior technology and strength were no match for human intelligence and unpredictability. Fear spread through their ranks as humans and Litherans struck from all sides. By midday, the Vorak began to retreat. Humans had destroyed their key machines, disrupted supply lines, and forced their soldiers into disarray. The Litherans cheered, their confidence soaring. They had fought alongside humans and survived. They had learned courage, strategy, and resilience. Jerk and his team regrouped on a cliff, looking over the battlefield. Fires burned in the distance, smoke rising into the sky. Vorak forces were scattered, retreating to regroup. Hiram approached, awe in his eyes. "We thought we were helpless. But today we fought, and we survived because of you." They were learning to fight to survive and to adapt. The humans had shown them that even a fragile species could be dangerous when taught to harness courage and intelligence. As night fell, the battlefield quieted. Humans and Litherans patrolled, repaired, and prepared for the next assault. Fires burned, signaling vigilance and determination. Jerk spoke softly to Mara. "This is only the beginning. The Vorak think strength alone will win, but courage, intelligence, and adaptability are stronger. Today, Lithra has learned that, and the Vorak will learn it soon enough." They knew the war was far from over, but hope had been reborn. Fear had been replaced with courage. Doubt had been replaced with confidence. The humans were rough, unpolished, and terrifying, but they were brilliant, adaptable, and unstoppable. For the Litherans, that was all that mattered. And for the universe, it was a warning. When humans arrive, nothing remains predictable. The Vorak had been defeated today, but they would return. And when they did, Earth's monsters and Lithra's newly courageous people would be ready. Together, they were no longer fragile. Together, they were unstoppable. The war for Lithra was far from over. But for the first time, hope burned brightly. And in that hope, humans had left a mark that would change the planet forever. The Vorak had returned. This time, their attack was not just a raid. It was an invasion. Massive ships darkened the skies, casting shadows over Lithra's floating cities and glowing oceans. The Litherans, once fragile and terrified, now stood ready. They had trained under humans for weeks, learning courage, adaptability, and strategy. And the humans were ready, as always, their eyes sharp, their movements precise, and their minds focused. Commander Jerk surveyed the battlefield from a high cliff. Beside him, Mara and Rylan checked equipment, ensuring every device, weapon, and trap was in place. Litherans stood nearby, tense but resolute. They had been transformed from scholars and artists into warriors under human guidance. "The Vorak think strength alone will win," Jerk said quietly. "They do not understand adaptability. They do not understand courage. They have never faced humans, and they have never faced Litherans who fight alongside humans. We will protect our world." Humans moved through the enemy ranks with unmatched precision, using guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and improvised weapons. Mara leaped onto a Vorak war machine, planting explosives that shattered its armor. Rylan disabled another with carefully calculated strikes, while Jerk coordinated the attacks from a vantage point, predicting enemy movements and directing both humans and Litherans. Litherans, once hesitant, now fought with determination. They triggered traps, activated energy barriers, and directed Vorak troops into kill zones. Each movement showed courage and intelligence, learned from humans and honed under the pressure of battle. For the first time, Litherans realized that strength was not only in bodies or weapons. It was in adaptability, strategy, and the will to survive. The Vorak commander, a massive figure clad in dark armor, roared in frustration. Their superior technology and brute force had failed repeatedly against the humans' unpredictable methods. Now Litherans were striking back, their courage and cleverness multiplying the humans' effectiveness. Jerk spotted the Vorak's ultimate weapon, a biomechanical predator capable of leveling entire cities. It moved through the battlefield, destroying anything in its path. "That's our target," Jerk said. "We stop it or Lithra falls." Mara leaped onto its back, planting a series of explosive charges. Sparks flew as Vorak soldiers tried to stop her, but she moved with the skill and fearlessness of someone who had faced death countless times. Rylan and a team of humans disabled the weapon systems, while Litherans assisted by triggering traps that slowed the Predator's advance. When the charges detonated, the machine shuddered violently and fell to the ground with a deafening crash. Trees shattered, rocks flew, and the ground shook beneath the combined force of humans and Litherans. The Vorak forces faltered, disoriented by the sudden destruction of their ultimate weapon. Seizing the moment, humans and Litherans struck from all sides. Ambushes triggered, explosives detonated, and Vorak troops were forced into disarray. Mara moved swiftly, disabling enemy soldiers, while Rylan coordinated attacks to prevent regrouping. Jerk directed the battlefield with remarkable clarity, ensuring every move counted. For hours, the battle raged. Vorak forces, despite their superior numbers and technology, could not withstand the humans' ingenuity combined with Litheran courage. Every strike demonstrated that even a fragile species, guided by determination and intelligence, could fight back against overwhelming odds. Hiram moved alongside the humans, directing Litheran fighters with growing confidence. "We are not helpless," he shouted over the chaos. "We fight, we survive, we adapt." Humans and Litherans coordinated a series of devastating attacks, targeting the enemy's remaining machines and supply lines. Explosions rocked the battlefield, smoke and fire filling the air. The Vorak were forced into complete withdrawal, their morale shattered by the unexpected resilience of a planet they had considered weak. At last, silence fell. The battlefield was scorched but victorious. Litherans and humans stood together, breathing heavily but triumphant. The twin suns cast a warm glow over the floating cities which had survived the assault largely intact. Hiram approached Jerk, awe and gratitude in his eyes. "We thought we were doomed, but you and your people, you saved us. Strength is not given, it is learned, and you've learned it well." They realized that their world had not been saved by brute force alone, but by the courage and adaptability that humans had shown them, and that they themselves had learned to embrace. The Vorak commander, defeated and humiliated, fled with the remainder of his forces. Rumors of the humans' strength and the Litherans' newfound courage spread through the galaxy. The blue planet that had sent monsters was no longer underestimated. Back on Lithera, the humans began helping with repairs and recovery. Litherans worked alongside them, rebuilding structures, restoring energy conduits, and tending to the wounded. Though the humans were fierce in battle, they also taught patience, strategy, and foresight. The Litherans learned that true strength was balance, the ability to fight when needed and to plan for survival at all times. At night, Jerk and Mara stood on a cliff overlooking the city. Fires burned below as Litherans and humans worked side by side. "They've changed," Mara said. "They are no longer the same people we met weeks ago. And they will continue to grow. You've seen what humans can teach, but they've also seen what Litherans are capable of. That is the real victory." And that is exactly what the universe must understand. When humans arrive, they do not bring predictable soldiers or diplomats. They bring monsters, unpredictable, relentless, and unstoppable. But these monsters also teach others to survive, to fight, and to be brave. That is the power of Earth. They had fought, taught, and inspired. They had transformed Lithera from a fragile world into one capable of defending itself. As they boarded their ship, Litherans gathered to see them off, gratitude and admiration shining in their eyes. Hiram approached Jerk. "Will you return?" he asked. Jerk smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but you no longer need us to survive. You've learned what is necessary. Remember it, use it, teach it. And if the universe calls again, you will answer, not as fragile people, but as strong survivors." And those monsters had not only saved Lithera, they had transformed it. As the ship disappeared into the stars, the Litherans felt a mixture of awe, gratitude, and determination. They were no longer the same people who had trembled at the first Vorak ship. They had learned to fight, to adapt, and to survive. They had learned courage, and above all, they had learned that monsters could be heroes. The stars above Lithera glimmered, and in their light a lesson echoed. The universe underestimated humans at its peril. Strength was not only in technology or beauty, but in adaptability, intelligence, and the will to survive. And the humans, the monsters from Earth, had shown that these qualities could change a world. Lithera had survived, its people had grown. And the galaxy had learned a new truth. When Earth sends its children, they do not come as ordinary saviors. They come as monsters. But these monsters fight for life, courage, and hope. and with them even the weakest world can rise to greatness. The battle was over, but the legacy had only begun.